What's up? Well, what kind of stuff do you tell yourself when you put yourself down? Whether it's true or not.
That's an interesting question. Actually, I thought about this just the other day. With I'd say little mistakes, like little mistakes made throughout the day, whether they be like missteps or like things that I might have said without totally comprehending the situation at the time. So I like to say that I'm not very good at like the whole multitasking like aspect of like having two things like on my mindset and thinking clearly enough to deal with them both accordingly. Like that's sort of like, yeah, I lost my point, but
Let me ask you, let's say now,
yeah.
why do you believe that, or do you have instances where you would rather listen to that criticism of yourself?
Oh yes.
Like, why doesn't all that motivation kick in? Why isn't all that self-positive, all that good stuff? Because it doesn't hold up for me.
Yeah, I think it comes in like spurts, and I don't know like how one is able to like keep up the positivity at all times 24/7. Like, I don't think life kind of allows that to happen. Even in the everyday, like there's little instances that happen, that you think about in hindsight, and you're like, wow, I could have done that better. Wow, I could have presented myself better. Wow, I really could have been organized before that situation and done a better job. I don't know if everybody thinks like that. I know it's kind of more like the like a perfectionist sort of like mindset, but that in itself can like lead to damage of, I don't want to say like it could be damaging, but if you think about it, or if I think about the image, like the imagery of what I want or what I expect, sometimes it may be too much, and that I even begin to realize, and like it's yeah, like.
You think you'd be better off without expectations?
I think so, mainly because I put myself on, I don't know, like I don't, it's with me in particular, I try to criticize myself on like little things that I think are beneficial to like me, my personality, and like what I find acceptable, like gratitude and sort of positivity or niceness or kindness or whatever. When I'm able to like share that, I try as much, and when I'm not, I feel bad for when I don't. And that situation always comes across. So yeah, and that is something that I feel like is kind of it's almost like a thing where I want to be that way, and it's almost like my pride kind of leading me to that, where I know I can't be on everybody's good side, and yeah, like that, maybe like people pleasing kind of like leads to that, and that I think could be dangerous. Like, for me myself, could be dangerous, because people could misconstrue like what I tend to say, or one person will think this way about me, and then it's just mainly because I was thinking that way at the time and I wasn't talking to this person, so you try to like make the best version of yourself, or at least I do, when I reflect how my interactions throughout the day, and I think that's where I try to pinpoint my flaws, is because nobody's perfect, but going into situations, you try to make you, at least me, I'll think of like how I'd want to be treated. And I think, do I try to treat everybody that way? And did I make that attempt to do that in that situation? Or did I think a certain way because this person does this or this person does that? And I really try to think of the synopsis of like why I go into that thought process. And sometimes and even like, I guess this would be like a really bad flaw for me, is like the instantaneous reactions, like because I know it's I have this thought process all the time, is that where my I don't particularly like agree with what my brain like kind of produces or like projects in my head immediately, so there's that counterintuitive like thought process of negative thoughts, almost trying to turn them positive. And I don't know what that's due to. Maybe that's due to like some of the negative like things that I've been put through, and like I'm just kind of projecting them onto others with my opinion. I think there's a lot of gravity towards that, a lot of weight with that.
And it gets dangerous, because I'm not saying you did this right now, but it clicked in my head like, yeah. If a negative thought runs in your head, it's hard to pinpoint the reason, right? So now you start putting on yourself like, oh, I did this, or like you start to, I'm not saying you make up things, but it's very dangerous if you hit the wrong reason, or if you use that to say, oh shit, there's something wrong with me, there's something wrong, like,
yeah,
it's just a voice in your head, it's just the voice.
Exactly.
But it leads to this crazy downward spiral where you start questioning things. And well, it gets dangerous when your thoughts start turning into your actions, and either you start acting paranoid or whatever the effect may be. That's when things start getting really crazy.
Most definitely. I agree with that 100%. I think it just comes up to the individual of them being able to contemplate whether whether it makes sense to do so in that moment of time. Like if somebody comes across my path and immediately my brain like interacts, tells me, I don't like that person for some particular reason, it goes to like, why? Like, why does your brain do that? Is it because of just this disdain of immediate jealousy that like you just go to that immediate thought process? Now, do you act upon it? No. I think people like dream about killing other people all the time, you know what I mean? But they never do it. But there's also the people that do. So we can't act like it's not out of the realm of possibility. But at the same time, that thought process, like once it goes to because I think there's like, it's like a level where it'll start at like the thought, and then it will go to, do you act upon it or do you not? And then from that point, it's like, okay, what do you do with this information? And like once you get to like what you do with this information, that's the point where you should be able to decide whether it's just your brain making fodder, making like that counterintuitive like thought process within your head, or is it that that's how you like instinctively need to feel, and that I think it goes to each person and how they're kind of how they're just what's in their DNA, I guess.
What was your life like before all the access to social media and all the techniques and all the positivity? What was your life like before? Because before, for me, that just meant trying to find a book, and that was a lot of effort. And I'm not. Sometimes reading is really, really hard, and or if you get lucky, you'll find like a good show on television.
Right.
So basically, that knowledge was a lot less accessible.
That's true. Me in particular, during the like phases of trying to like get myself, into a point where, I was okay with the life I was living. I began with, like just kind of filling a void. I really wasn't on that sort of mind frame until I like started to realize like how I lived my life was actually affecting it. Like I would just kind of fill my time with like watching, TV shows, like you said, or like playing video games, or going out, like trying to like, socialize, or going out, exercising, or I just try to keep myself like active or busy with things that I knew would kind of, keep my hands, busy. And I've always like in that time, I also, any relationships, whether it be friends or close loved ones, I always felt like there was like an attachment necessary, like I don't feel that way anymore. And I've been able to notice
dependency.
Yeah, dependency. And like I don't like, I naturally don't feel that way anymore. And it's interesting because I began to realize that I needed it in the past, and I still do for the most part, like as far as like communication is concerned. Who doesn't?
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody can be alone. Like as far as like nobody's can be kept in a room alone, by themselves for a long time. But my point being is that fucking I lost it already too. This.
All I know is we're talking about dependency back then.
That's right.
Very and then good. Now you're an individual. Like
Yeah.
You can be a standalone dude.
Yes. And I would find myself trying to fill time, in these relationships, in these friendships, and that's where I would find the commonplace, and you helped me find my place. But the commonplace would be like to fill time. It would be to go out. To fill time, to fill interest would be to go out and party. To have all the like the typical things, in place, where that was the thing leading me back to the dependency. And it's like, oh fuck, like in the end of the situation, I'm gonna feel shitty, so I'm gonna go back to the person that does.
How about this? You were living a life where your decisions were based more so on the dependency. So the focus was on being around with others.
Yeah.
And none of that time was all that progress, and basically that time was not serving you necessarily.
That's
It's
right.
Just fillers.
There was efforts for it to be on the other end,
Oh yeah, definitely moments like that.
But you're right. Like eventually, like because I'd be distracted by it. You know what I mean? I like anything that I was focused on at that time. That's why I don't have like much of a career like surpassed, or like much of a most of my job history inquires just lots of like part-time to like random full-time jobs, and like it's mainly due to because of the relationships and the goals that I try to have and juggle at the same time, and a lot of it was financially draining, emotionally draining, physically draining, on each side of it. And I think it all together, it all kind of collapsed on me, and I think that is very easily susceptible to finding or to being lost within like the needing to go out every weekend and that sort of shit.
Straight up, I'm at a point where my head's on pretty damn good.
Yeah.
But the problem is, with all the time that I wasted, I don't know how at this point at age 32 I can get things back on track.
Honestly, I what immediately comes to mind is the optimism. Because if you do, like let's say you do sacrifice time to be able to do that, like you have the capacity now to look at what mistakes were made before and to double down on them. Of course time is not on your side, but things could be done in a timely manner nowadays. I think there's more like accessibility for people to be able to put themselves in situations like that and succeed, because there's there's more people in that process of doing it.
How about we put it back to you though?
Like with me,
if I were to tell you, hey man, would you be down to go back to school tomorrow?
Like that,
what would you say?
That would be something that I would be definitely interested in. Capital is an issue for me, which is, you know, money up front, and you know, that's going to be kind of straining. With me, my excuse, if you were to tell me point blank right now, like if you were to ask me that question, you are asking me that question, I would say that with my progress and my head on my shoulders, like especially within the environment of school, and I mean, let's face it, kind of, you know, that young atmosphere, kind of like, I'd probably try to do more things online, and, and try to get away from any sort of interaction that might put me in danger of getting back into, I mean, because me, I feel like I'm on that point where I'm still liable for temptation, you know? And like, even though I'm old, like I'm 29 years old, like, you know, what am I, you know, like going to school is to have, like, and getting that degree is the main purpose. And you know, I can, if I have like the wrong or right conversation, depending on what day fucking I'm thinking, you know, I can fucking have that all, or like lead it to the wrong direction. You know, one day could turn into 1 week, could turn into one missed test, can turn into 1 week of not showing up to lecture, to, you know, it just all builds. And some people can handle it, some people can't. And I would just think at this point, I would tell you, I need to build more stability in my life. I need, like, I actually need time to be able to think like this, because I think much like a scar, or much like a cut or a wound, your body needs time for like your muscles to heal, or like your bones to heal, or your skin to heal. And I think the mind, if it's, you know, within like a certain certain mindset, and you're completely like cutting that mindset out, and you're adding a new one, I think there's like a mental scar that happens that needs to be kind of scabbed and you know, I hate to use all these terms, or all these, like, you know, metaphors, yeah, but that is the only things that I can think of. And if eventually you feel comfortable in your status of who you are, and you know it can never be shifted, then I think not only do you have an advantage of going back to school now than in your youth, but you would be more likely to be successful. You might not be as you know, you might not look as good as far as like potential, like people looking for jobs, or I don't know what your eventual goal is, or what my eventual goal would be to be. I mean, mine would be to, you know, get a nice fucking dope job, you know, pays nice, you know, a great environment, this and that. That would be the goal. But the process, the journey in the meantime would be, you know, would be a difficult one. And that I think that I would need time for, like, mentally to.
Why are you not there yet?
Like mentally, temptation is the main one. Temptation is it, because I just feel like I need to be able to build a surrounding with myself to feel like comfortable in knowing that when I go home every day, that's the choice that I want to make. You know, I want to go back to my like environment because I care for it that much, and I want to go back to, and not to sound selfish or anything, I mean, I probably do, but it's I know that's what works for me. You know, like I can't be that party guy and then be the fucking valedictorian. You know, it's just not in my blood. I need to kind of have like a perfect storm for me to be successful, and that's what I've always thought, and that's what I've come to realize at this point. So I feel like I need time. Like I feel like I need, like I've even like told myself this in the past. Like I feel like I need like an hour, like a year, a whole year, like really not want the temptation of like you know, like needing to like go out and like I'm merely just barely getting kind of like into this or like on this like within the past couple weeks really. You know, because there's temptation all over the place. Like I've thought about the process of like how my old self would think like it's summertime, like this is the time where you'd be out like trying to have the most fun of your time, even though like you're fucking 29 years old. Like, you know, like you're trying to like over here, you know, like fucking get with, you know, young girls and this and that and fucking like drink your ass off, and it's just it doesn't roll off the tongue like now than when it did like when I was 24 or 25, you know. And yeah, like I think that I can run into that situation even as I think like this now, you know, like I would wake up the next morning and no matter what I would have next to me, if I were like in a shitty situation, I'd be like, this is the last fucking time I want to do this. Would it be the last time? Probably not. But the temptation is something that is an obstacle that I need to. And the only way that I can avoid it at this point right now is to totally avoid it. Is totally like fucking try to outmaneuver it, and it's the only way. It's the only way that because or else like I fold, you know, like all it takes is a little, you know, oh pussy, or like, you know, oh like fucking, you know, I mean I hate to be, but you know, I hate to think of myself as kind of pathetic like that, but you know, everybody has buttons, and of course I like to think at this point now, like I would hold firm, a lot more firm than I would in the past. But you know, people have just become a lot more smarter to the game, and you know, it's just not something that I was made for, I guess. So yeah, that's what I would say mainly for it is that this temptation would come across my way, and I wouldn't know how to like deal with it directly.
Was that a close? That could have been the close?
I think that's a good closing, honestly. Like it kind of like caps on a lot of different like subjects of how I feel with, because it all kind of relates still too. It, you know, because it's the transition. It's you know, it's still a problem. Like I'm still looking for, you know, a goal in life, kind of, and it all relates to just you know, I don't want to say addiction, but you know, the things that stem from, you know, the problems in my life that I feel like are problems: the alcohol, the drugs in and out, and you know, just the environment of, you know, peer pressure and stuff. So it all relates. It all relates. If yeah.
All right, we'll leave it at that. That's a wrap.